welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and for the first time ever, if I'm correct, other than on playback.tv, shout out to Playback, we'll be watching or doing this live NBA Finals Game 1 reaction show, as you'll see on the screen, joined by, as always, friend of the program, Grayson Hill. So first time asking you this live. How are you after Game 1?
I'm good. I'm very grateful to Miami for that little burst to start the fourth to give us a little bit more to talk about instead of a 20-something point game. They made it interesting. Little blast from past Kyle Lowry, making this thing interesting. But ultimately, Denver looked the part, looked like the better team all night, and comes away with a 1-0 series lead after 4 quarters.
That's a great point. I'll throw up the 1-0 series lead on the screen. I mean, getting used to this stuff on YouTube, Twitter. If you're watching this right now, appreciate you. If not, if you're listening to this the next day, you'll see or hear that obviously, as always, we're sponsored by SeatGeek. Code 2Pointers, $20 off your first purchase, SeatGeek.com or in the app. You get a deal score, get a view of your seat, $20 off that first purchase. Enough sellout stuff, all right? If anybody's watching live, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear Game 1 reaction. It literally just happened, obviously, and you'll see as I switch the reaction show stuff to the bottom of the screen. But I just want to talk about like what we saw, a couple different things to take away from this. I don't want to like be the damper on the guy that like, okay, Miami's an 8 seed, right? Should we sit here and drag them through the mud? They made it competitive, 10-point game at one point. Their biggest lead at one point was 1. Denver's biggest lead at one point was 24. So you mentioned Kyle Lowry, vintage there, but what was your biggest takeaway from the game, whether it's Denver or Miami?
I picked up on a couple of things kind of throughout, and I'll go quasi chronological to start off, but just the first shots of the game stuck out to me, which kind of sounds cliche, but Denver's was Jamal Murray going straight for the basket, and Miami was dancing around the paint and shooting jumpers. And that kind of just early indication really held true the whole game. Denver owned the paint. It's evident points in the paint, probably offensive glass. Haven't looked at post game. Free throw attempts, another indication who's being more physical. Miami, a playoff low in the history of the NBA with 2 free throws attempted. That was 3. I don't know by who or when, but I'd be impressed if that gets broken. But clearly just not able to do a lot inside. Great game from Bam Adebayo, but it was a lot of mid-range stuff, which to his credit, I've got my notes 3 or 4 times. Bam mid-range keeps me watching this game. He really kept them in it, did his best, career high in shot attempts for him. He had 26 points on 25 shots, maybe the inverse of that. But he did everything he could to keep him in the game. It worked for most of the first half, some of the third quarter, and it got to the point where it was going to be Jimmy or death, and tonight was death for Miami.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I took away from it, especially earlier in the game, like you said, when things kind of changed up and we started to see some stuff that just like kept Miami alive. I know a couple things in there. Max Strus wasn't one of those things. Gabe Vincent wasn't one of those things, even though he had 19. It didn't feel like it was very gravitas because of the lead. So, I mean, 50% from the field, 50% from 3 for Vincent. But for me, it was the bench for Miami is just not there. And I think that's just like the glaring takeaway from Game 1. I said it yesterday. I was very clear. I was like, eventually depth does matter, even though people make the comment like you play your best 8. But like Miami's best 8 includes Duncan Robertson. I have to look at this guy's first name. Highsmith.
Haywood Highsmith, yeah.
Yeah, Haywood.
Who had the quietest 18 in finals history, I might add.
Yeah, 23 minutes. And then Kyle Lowry off the bench, 26 minutes, and 11 points. So, and that's it. They got 8 minutes from Cody Zeller, a couple of rebounds there.
Zell got minutes in there, yeah.
That's it. But Jovic and Yurtseven both had a minute each. So, they're playing 8 guys, and it's not, look on the other side. Denver played 8 guys, period. They didn't play a single minute outside of those 8, and they got Christian Brown's, best minutes there, and just 8 minutes from him. They didn't need anything, but he had a rebound and assist. Bruce Brown with 21. We know he was going to be really important. And then Jeff Green. Shout out to Jeff Green for being the second leading minute guy off the bench.
Very good minutes, yeah.
Yeah, not that they would have reached down much further there. They haven't played Thomas Bryant since February. So,
right.
There's a couple things I want to address. You mentioned Murray earlier, so I want to pivot to that really quick. Murray, I've always been in the camp of like he's not valued because of the place he's in with Jokic, and like I guess a lot of, and I don't want people to misconstrue that because like he's good in his own way, in his own right, but when you have a guy like Jokic showcasing you the way that he does, I want to give you a guess. Just play a little quick game. Right. I did the all-time points per game. This was like halfway through the second half. Like I was like, wait a minute, this is interesting. just throw out where you think he's ranked all time in points per game in the playoffs if you count a minimum of 40 games. So I subtracted some guys that may have been younger that didn't play, because they've played, by the way, he's averaged almost 12 or 13 playoff series or playoff games a year, and they've only played 3 playoffs. So they've made it far every time. 2018, they made it to the second round. Obviously, we know in the bubble they made it to the Western Conference Finals, and then, of course, this year in the finals. So in 3 playoff rounds, he's had a heck of a career so far with it, and they've made it pretty far. So all things considered, there's a lot of factors there, including a 2-time MVP as a teammate. But where do you think he ranks if you do minimum 40 games? And that eliminates guys like Trae Young. I'll throw you out there a couple of freebies. That eliminates Trae Young. That eliminates Luka, believe it or not. Luka's only played 27 games, so it eliminates a lot of these. Like, there was a couple guys from like 1944 or 46 on that list that played like 8 games. One guy was like Bobo Smith or something like that. I was like, yeah, let's just cut that guy out. So if you take those guys out, where do you think he ranks all time in playoff points per game, minimum 40 games?
I'm trying to gauge just how you're phrasing the question of how high he is. I would say top 20, top 15, or is it way higher than that?
Top 20 is right. He's 19th all time in playoff points per game, and that's ahead of some guys like Dominique Wilkins and just some of these names. And I can pull it back up, but like some of these names that just don't make any sense that he's ahead of in similar lines of of thinking when it comes to games played. Obviously, he's behind a lot of stout players. Anthony Davis, Giannis is ahead of him, Steph is ahead of him, George Gervin, Elgin Baylor, his teammate Jokic is ahead of him, believe it or not, 27.5. Devin Booker, 43 games played, had to slide that one in there. Mitchell, 44, because we always think about Murray and Mitchell together, which is why I brought it up.
Right, because that bubble series. Yeah.
Well, Mitchell's played 44 games, Murray's played 48, and Mitchell's averaging almost 5 points per game more. So, wow. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, again, it has no validity. He's one spot above Dirk, who played 145 playoff games in his career.
That's an absolute name. Yeah, that's crazy.
But even if you take away, like, and I don't want to spend forever on this, but even if you take away, like, let's say guys under 100, right? Like, Rick Barry only played 74 playoff games. He averages more points per game than Rick Barry, who won a Finals MVP, right? Karl Malone, 193. That's not a good example. Bernard King doesn't count. He only played 28 playoff games in his career, funny enough. Another Denver Nuggets legend, Alex English. Didn't think we'd talk about that guy tonight, did you?
Wow.
68 games in his career, and he averaged less points per game. And then, obviously, you've got a bunch of guys after that I'm just not going to name. But because it gets just obvious at that point he should have more points per game. But the point I'm making is I think people got to the point where they realized with an injury and playing with Jokic that he needs to be in that same conversation as some of the top guards in the league. That's kind of where I concluded, and this game just continued to show that. By the way, he had 26 tonight, which is more than his playoff average in his career. So there you go. That literally, I don't know how you reply to that. I just wanted to put that out there as that was one of the biggest things I wrote down tonight.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the people that claim to know ball and then now have the revelation that Jokic is an incredible passer. People kind of forgot about Murray, better for worse, probably because of the injury and the time off, kind of like Clay. We were all hopeful that he would come back in his same form, and there's nights he is, there's nights he's not. But for me, game 2 against Los Angeles with the 23-point fourth quarter, I was like, wow, okay, this looks like the guy I watched in the bubble dealing with Mitchell every other night for a week. And he made his presence known tonight. He did a lot outside of scoring too. Jokic got his first points, I believe, with 3 seconds left in the first quarter, on just a garbage putback layup. So, I mean, he was really carrying the load. Michael Porter Jr. as well at times. So, I mean, if you're Miami and you're thinking, okay, we can shut down Jokic, he still had 27, but was not a high scorer through large parts of this game. Make the rest of the guys beat us. That's exactly what Denver did tonight. The rest of the guys beat them. Bruce Brown, big scoring boost off the bench. Like we mentioned, the bench comparison tonight was barely that, if anything. So I just need an APV out for Martin and Strus at this point. And Martin got maybe 1 3, but Strus 0 for 10 from the field, 0 for 9 from 3, didn't record a shot in the fourth quarter. I don't know if he played that much. He had 21 minutes, I want to say, when all was said and done.
Yeah,
but they're going to have to have
field 0 for 9 from 3. Martin had 1 field goal and 1 3-pointer.
That can't happen. If you show anybody those 2 stat lines, you probably say they lose by more than what they did, the 11 points. But I think that, Jimmy can be a superhero, but he's not going to do it every single game. I think at absolute best, you're going to get 3, maybe 4. And I think at that point, you're just praying for fourth quarters like we saw throughout the playoffs that kind of dragged them back from the brink. Tonight it was Kyle Lowry trying to do that to start the quarter, I believe in 8-0, 10-0, 11-0. run to start the quarter, and then Denver kind of settled in and figured things out and stretched the lead back to 16 about halfway through, and that was pretty much curtains. But Murray is, if this is the I guess bar for his games, I would take a shot at one or two of these being better than tonight, which is scary if you're Miami because there wasn't a lot of answers. They were daring him to shoot mid-range, which is, as we saw, a very bad idea. Not the biggest game from outside. I think he was 2 of 4, 2 of 5 from 3. So, I mean, it wasn't even like he was hitting threes left and right, and before you knew it, he had 20 points. It was all around the rim, mid-range, stuff like that. So, this is not the ceiling for Murray. And if you're Miami, I would be scared of that, honestly.
And to get 10 assists and 6 rebounds out of him when Jokic still has a triple-double.
Oh, right, yeah. It was far beyond the points part of the slash line, yeah.
I try my damnedest to look at these games and especially in the finals and it's a testament to the fact we have literally less than 7 games now left of basketball for then we're watching old games. We're going to rewatch The Last Dance, I'm sure, a couple times. I'll watch the TBT as much as I possibly can. Shout out to the TBT. But Aaron Gordon, I think, was more important than I think his 36 minutes, 7-10 from the field, and 16 points shows. Obviously, I've made it very clear plus-minus in a vacuum looks ridiculous. Michael Porter Jr. had a +20 plus-minus and not Jokic. Right? So in a vacuum, it looks, whatever, 15 plus-minus. They were up most of the game. But Aaron Gordon, this was the guy that teams just weren't guarding throughout the playoffs at one point, and then the Lakers at one point through Game 3 had literally just not guarded him a couple of different times and most switches. And then he had a really good start to Game 4, which I'm now having flashbacks to because he had a really good start to Game 1 tonight. Had 12 in the first quarter, had 2 in the second quarter, and then literally didn't score again at all, right? Or 4 in the second quarter. So he literally had first half points, and that's it. The reason I think that's important is Denver's going to beat the crap out of Miami if they're going to be able to get a guy like Gordon going early, and then he's never needed again. It conserves him for defense. He's actually a lot better defender than I think people realize. They're going to put him primarily on Butler like they have, or Caleb Martin, who struggled tonight. I don't think that's a coincidence. The point I'm bringing up is that's where you'll get production later from KCP, from Jeff Green, from Bruce Brown, who, by the way, all things considered, they only got 14 points off the bench. Their bench wasn't even that good. It really wasn't.
Right.
When we think about it, when you play this kind of deep, it's just how important the role players are and how impactful you get of a team like this. I think people all the time are going to overzealous the way Miami builds their team and how important their role players are. But I think it matters that Jeff Green is a 16-year veteran. I think it matters that Bruce Brown has played with a lot of really great players in his career, like Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook and some other guys that he knows for a fact he knows how to play with. Christian Brown, national champion at Kansas, right? Three-time state champion in high school. We've heard that story many times this week because they're going to talk about everything. But the point is there's these guys that are impactful winners. KCP is a finals champ in 2020, like we talked about Murray's impact earlier. So all these guys know how to win, and I think it's important that these guys are stepping up. And I'm not going to sit here and make the undrafted versus non-undrafted comps because that's not the point. The point is these role players know exactly how to be impactful, and it helps whenever your guy who's one of the best passers of all time is your leading player. So that was something I took away, was kind of like trying to land the plane here off of Aaron Gordon, no pun intended. But just to see how important that first 16 points was able to use him. They were able to use him so much better later because of it, I think.
Yeah, I have in my notes, Gordon had 8 points in the first 5 minutes. Really jump-started the offense. I mentioned Jokic not recording a shot attempt for 99.9% of the entire first quarter, but racked up 6 assists. So they were kind of drawing guys to him in pairs, and he was finding Gordon or finding an open shooter further out, and it was working. Miami had decent looks early, shot creation-wise, but they just could not buy it, and that was really a theme that persisted the entire game. I'm not sure what the team slash lines look like, but I know they're not good enough to win a playoff game, let alone a finals game on the road. This was the first time Miami's dropped a game one on playoffs. They were 3-0 on the road in these game ones. I think they won in Chicago in the play-in as well. So if you want, you can go to the postseason portion of the playoffs.
And lost Butler when they were down by 8 in New York. They lost Butler the final 5 minutes of game one in the New York series with that ankle injury.
Yeah, yeah.
We know that they can come back. That's not the issue. It was, and that's why I'm watching this. Like you said, they at least gave us a breath of life.
Yes, yeah.
But
it was with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. That was the problem.
Yeah, finish your point, because I want to ask a question that I was going to ask in the series recap, but I do think it just needs to be asked right now and in this first game one reaction. So go ahead and Finish out your point, and then I do have a question about the greater scheme. I think you make a great point about Miami being this team that can win on the road quickly and easily.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon was the early burst, and then Bruce Brown took over in the middle portion of the game, and late they really didn't need it. The only reason they really had to keep anybody of note on the floor was that 11-0 burst to start the fourth from Miami. So if you really turned it off after three quarters, you're thinking nobody played in the fourth quarter, but actually it was the opposite because that early 3.5-ish minute onslaught from Miami to keep TVs tuned in. So, I mean, yeah, you mentioned Christian Braun. He was ready for the moment. He was diving on the floor within 10 seconds of checking in his brief stint, but that's really all you need. I'm sure he snuck on late as well as the game was out of hand late. But I think that, guys like that, especially at a team that has never gone to the finals as an organization, to have guys like KCP, like you mentioned, with experience in the finals, obviously the championship with the Lakers, being a mentor to not only younger guys in Braun, but the rest of the team, because a lot of other guys have never been to the finals. That's where Jeff Green comes in as a big part as well. Things you don't see on the stat sheet are really on the court necessarily. It's more behind closed doors in the locker room, getting ready for this game. I thought it was interesting. The Nuggets coach, whose name I should know, and it's escaping me in the moment, but the last thing I heard from him, the last thing I heard from him, I guess one of those like pre-game audio mics in the locker room was he made it very clear this Miami team won game one, all three playoff series on the road, and they were about to step on their home floor and face that same team. I think that resonated really, really well. Pretty even-ish start, and they slowly started to pull away. It was 29-20 Denver after one. That's the closest they got in between quarters. So I think they did a really good job from a coaching standpoint as well, making sure they were well aware that this Miami team was not just going to like go play 48 minutes and hope for a split flying back to Miami. This is a team that had stepped onto hostile courts and won in succession 3 straight game ones to get these upset bids going that have gotten them here. So,
yeah, Mike Malone, I mean, this is the same guy that I won't be shy about this. I mean, I think he could have been fired 4 years ago, right? But they gave him a chance, and deservingly so. He was able to go in and outplay and outcoach Spo, which is totally fair. I also think at this point sometimes, like, I think people do overvalue coaching sometimes, even though I do think, like, the reason we're looking at the Miami Heat as an 8 seed versus the Celtics right now is because of Ime Udoka. I really think that's the difference right now, believe it or not, and shot chucking, but obviously he probably would have cut that out in, like, January. I hate to ask this, and Boston's my beautiful segue to it, and this is like, I don't like to do these talking head things, but I'm noticing I'm doing it more. Who would have put up a better fight? Whether in the series, we don't know, right? Miami might still win the series, right? Like, and again, this is why I would have asked this, and I would have asked this after Game 4, Game 5, Game 6, Game 7, whatever. I would have asked that then, but I genuinely think the 24-point lead, like, that was really that was what the actual game felt like and looked like. So I don't care what the final is right there at the bottom, 93-104. But who in the East would have put up a better fight in Game 1? Let's just say in Game 1. How about I don't first take myself here?
Right.
In Game 1, who would have put up a bigger fight, or who would have potentially won this game in Denver over Miami?
I think it's Boston only because I would be way more surprised if Denver jumped out up 24 on Boston as opposed to Miami. And they'd still, we can, for the sake of argument, say that Miami series still went 7 games, same rest, same all these ulterior motives, and all these things.
We have to same factors. We know that. Yeah, we have to go.
I just think that Boston team was more talented. Now, talent does not get you to the finals because the Bucks and the Celtics, one of those two teams would be playing in Denver right now. But I think that I struggle to see Boston playing a game this similar. Now, will they steal Game 1? I don't know, but I don't think it's a game largely in hand throughout. I don't know if they steal one. They might steal 1 or 2, but and I'd probably have the same answer pre-game, honestly. So even looking further out just for a second on the series, I think I'd have to lean Boston as well. But they're just so Jekyll and Hyde that it's, would good Boston have played better? Yeah. Would bad Boston have played better? Probably not. It depends on what version of the Celtics team you get. And that lack of consistency is why they're at home right now. So, but
my answer is going to surprise you. I'm going to say Philly because of if we're assuming fully healthy Embiid. Like, I think Philly would have put up a heck of a fight in this series as a whole. I really do think, like, the way I think their benches are very similar. You've got like that savvy defensive guard, Bruce Brown and DeAnthony Melton. You've got guys that can hit threes. I don't think they necessarily have a Christian Brown on, Philly, but we're whatever, not A and B comparison here, right? But I do think Philly would have probably been a really good matchup for Denver. Ultimately, though, Denver's the best team in the playoffs. Denver's the best team in their regular season. And shocker, victory lap. I said it in October. Like it was, if these guys all came back healthy, this was going to happen. Now, no one other than I think it was Isaac Gutierrez of ESPN, long time reporter. He had Miami and Denver preseason in the finals. Yeah. So good for him. Unless your name is Isaac Gutierrez, no one in their right mind thought they'd be playing the 8-seeded Heat. So let's just address that for a second. Like it is. We are in a position where, this is going to be clouded. People are going to look at this eventually, and the narrative, and what did Kendrick Perkins say? The goalpost's going to shift, right? We're going to be like, Denver played. I've already seen the tweets. Denver played an 8 seed, a 4 seed. What were the Lakers? A 7,
I'm
an
so
8.
sick of that.
I'm like, look at the teams that they were playing, and look at the I don't care what the score was. Miami is they're going to put their foot down here eventually. It's going to happen. Whether it's in Miami, and that's where we think, we're going to get to game 4, and we're doing this pod again, and we're going to be like, what are we thinking? It's 2-2. What the heck?
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I
the
don't
Jimmy
think
game is coming.
It is, and he seems. I don't want to overthink, but he seems a little gassed. But that just might be the fact that they are playing in Denver.
That's mileage.
You're going to see it. Yeah. It's
mileage elevation.
Eventually. Yeah. Funny enough, I really don't have anything other than for game, actual game. I have 2 things I want to bring up that are hilarious, and then we'll talk about one more thing at the end. But first of all, Jokic and Murray scored or assisted on 69 points through 3 quarters. So, if they're just going to do the 2-man all series, I'm good. They're probably going to win in 5. That's great.
Miami had 63 points total in 3 quarters. To give you an idea of, again, how over-ish this game was the entire night.
The other 2 things I want to bring up. Yeah. We need Van Gundy and Jackson replacements. I love these guys to death, but I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I've given up. I used to the
war on fouls. I think that Van Gundy has led valiantly. Needs to stop.
So
I think that
it's not even that. It's not even right. It's not even a right wrong thing. It's a. I've told you many times I'm an NBA historian at heart, right? So I care about what mattered to me when I was younger, or what mattered to me where I previously. I used to love Mike Breen in the finals. I just love the bang calls and the excitement that he brings and understanding the moment, right? And then over to the side, you see those tweets all the time where it's they're talking about, and it literally just type anything for another 3 sentences, and that's what they're talking about over in the corner.
It's believable, first of all.
It is, and I'm they do it in the finals. They just don't know. They can't read the room, I think is the point. I don't know, man. I think we just need new color guys with those 2 guys. I'm out. I
think all due respect, I think we do need some new color guys.
Here's this sad reality. Mike Breen's almost done with his career. So those guys are probably gonna stick around if they don't get coaching jobs, for God's sake. And then Breen's gonna be over Breen's gonna be in Cabo somewhere having a great time. And it's gonna be
the
really
Raptors
dumb.
will hire one of them. We'll get saved from half of this.
Or JJ Redick apparently.
Right,
the other thing I want to point out this. I actually want to put out a challenge. I was meant to do this earlier, but I didn't want to start on such a funny note. I wanted to actually talk about the game that happened.
Right.
Going against my own mantra, I guess. But the Chipotle thing. Have you seen the Chipotle thing? You saw the ads probably, right? Throughout these games.
Yeah, remind me. It's 300 free burritos for every blank.
Every 3-pointer. Every 3-pointer.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you how much money
Tough night for that.
I'm going to tell you how much. No, it is, but it is really funny that they pick Denver's not a top 10 team. I think they're 12th in threes this regular season or something like that, and then Miami was bottom 5. So it is pretty funny that they don't get a Warriors finals or whatever. Which they know what they're doing, right? Let me tell you how much money they lost tonight. I just want to put it out there. Even with the low 3-point shooting night, I'm going to put up really fast and we're going to go off my average order just for the sake of the example. But Miami shot 13 of 39 from 3, and Denver shot 8 of 27. Wow. Yeah, they took 39 of them, though. Denver shot 8 of 27. So we're going to go 13. I'm going to do the math live in case I'm screwed up, thinking it's funny, and we can make a TikTok out of it. So 21 threes were made tonight, okay? Times 300 burritos. That's 6,300 burritos, okay?
Wow.
Times an average of my average chicken bowl with no extra stuff on it is $9 in North Carolina. So we're going to go $9 Chipotle lost $56,700 tonight.
Good Lord.
If either of these teams shoot anywhere in the 40% range, Chipotle is going to lose $1 million this series. But you know how much money they probably made like in ad revenue? Like it's ridiculous.
Sure.
I just want to make that known. And the reason I'm bringing it up, I'm sorry that my notes weren't that good in the first half because I was trying to get a burrito the whole first half. I'll be honest with you. Every single time they hit a three, I was texting it immediately. I'm putting up a challenge, and whenever this goes up on YouTube after the fact, people will see the live screenshot or whatever. But I also hold it up as well. I'm going to show you all of my missed attempts, and then and then there's all of my missed attempts. Just one screen, right? Shout out to Will from House Press. But yeah, all of the missed attempts, right? Sorry, the buzzer ran out. Thanks for playing. I issue a challenge. I will give a $10 Chipotle gift card out to if anybody can tweet me them actually winning their free entree tonight.
That's big.
I will send it publicly. I will put it out to whoever sends me the screenshot first. If somebody does, or either of us, right? Twitters are on the screen. Please, somebody send me that because I promise you, no one won it. They lost $55,000 in perpetuity. There's no way they actually won. No one won it. It was ridiculous. There's no way, and the whole Twitter replies were the same way.
Right.
So there's my Chipotle rant. That's it.
A lot of Max Drew stat lines out there with this challenge, unfortunately. I think they're cowards until they go back and do it for Kings Warriors, where they're shooting like 80 a game. I don't
would have been really funny.
Yeah, I'll be impressed if they do something like that, where it's like
half the amount of people do it though, because it's literally a first round series. But yeah, neither.
In a series, they shoot more threes than twos. That's when I want to see these type of things. But like you mentioned, they know what they're doing. I'm really stunned Miami hit 13 threes. They must have hit 4 in the last 5 minutes when no one cared because it felt like they shot 8 for 60. But yeah, that Lowry burst we've mentioned a couple of times probably helps chip into that too. So,
any other game thoughts before we address the elephant in the room?
I mean,
you went Denver 5. To be clear, you went Denver 5 on your show,
which I feel much better about now. But as an NBA fan, I don't want a 5-game finals. Frankly, I don't. Now, if it's, 4 games like this and, Miami steals 1 or 2, whatever. But, we are, like you said, at a finite number of basketball games left. There's a maximum of 6 more before we really get into draft season and the off season and things like that. But
don't worry, the draft season is well and mighty in my household. I just cut down. I had 122 prospects. You want to guess how many of them I had to cut out of my because of the early entry going back, whatever. You see all those lists that came out? Yeah. I think I lost like 26 players in my top 125. There's
a lot of coming back. Yeah,
I had to narrow it down to 75. I legitimately was going to put out a top 100. That's out the window because I don't think I scouted that many guys. I had to just draw the line. Like I don't think Hunter Tyson was going to get ranked, and now he's probably getting ranked because it.
You look at in memoriam 20 guys I would have had ranked.
Yeah, I think honorable mention times 20. Right, it's going to have to be great. I don't know. It's God. The draft makes me want to vomit this year. Cool. So let's address the elephant in the room really quick.
Sure.
I don't have the tweet in front of me, so I'm going to or I don't have the, whoever tweeted. I don't have the quote in front of me, but I'm going to paraphrase. We don't want to spoil, this is Adam Silver speaking here. We don't want to spoil this NBA Finals. Yeah. But, and you texted me about it, so I was like, you know what, let's just do it.
Right, this is good.
Hypothetically, we have 2 minutes left, but I don't really care. The live can go for longer than 30 minutes, even though it's East Coast time. But basically, Adam Silver says hour before tip, basically, was it? It was like hour and 20 minutes.
Not 70 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's call it hour-ish before tip. We get a quote from Adam Silver that says,
"From a podium.
We don't want to damper." Yeah, from the podium. We don't want to damper this NBA Finals for you guys, whoever that is, the fans, whatever he was addressing.
Sure.
He's like, but we do have information. Again, paraphrasing here. Pending whatever we've seen from our investigation on Ja Morant, and we will choose to release this at a later, choose to address this at a later time.
Right.
Over under, he gets suspended 3 years.
Is he going to prison? Is this what's going to happen?
I think anything's. I legitimately did this. I don't care if this gets aggregated. I legitimately think anything's on the table right now because here's the problem.
Texas Smart, he's getting a season. I mean,
he will. He'll get a season, and here's why. They're going to have to make an example of him because you remember the last guy that did this?
Oh, I do.
Gilbert Arenas. Yeah, they made an example out of him.
He got for a very long time. Yeah,
he got at least a year, 50, right? So or whatever it was, which back then was probably like purgatory, right? But
Exactly. Yeah.
He's going to be made an example of, because if there's anything I've learned about Adam Silver is he's a player's commissioner at heart. Don't get me wrong, but when he has to put his foot down, he has before.
Yeah.
Now,
if you stray from the general consensus of what they deem conduct becoming, you're getting kicked to the curb. Doesn't matter who you are.
I will say the timing of the amount of games on these suspensions sometimes is very NFL-esque, where it's like, that's interesting that this is more than this, but that's some of that stuff set aside preliminary, right? When it's an unprecedented situation like this,
he's already gotten 8. Keep that in mind.
I mean, then again, Miles Bridges got 10. 30 minus 20 that he already had done, so Miles Bridges got 10. I'm not putting him on the same pedestal. Again,
no.
This is
and
not
it's
what
just,
we're
that's
doing.
like you said, it gets to be apples and oranges when you get in the weeds. But I dare say it's going to be further than 10 games. By a factor of who knows.
Don't worry, Adam. It did not damper this game. Miami dampered this game. So that was kind of my conclusion to this.
If he had done that at halftime, that would have been perfect. It's like, it's a 17-point game. Oh, by the way, we're going to send Ja Morant to actual rehab for more than like the 6 hours he spent in there. And so I just quickly on that, whatever time he does miss, I hope it's used in a productive manner, because the first time around, it was not.
It was irrelevant.
I don't know what he was doing. I'm sure he was behaving, but he was not actually learning from it and surrounding himself with people that would look out for his own interests and not his pockets, and tell him, hey, maybe don't do this ever again. So there's even language in the CBA about firearms. They're very strict about it. They do not mess around with this. There is no tenure with it. There's no talent line where if you're past this rank of player, we don't care. That's clearly not the case. It derailed their season, quite literally. That and the Steven Adams injury, I think, the two things that really sunk that Memphis ship this year, unfortunately. Because when they are on the court, they are healthy. It's a really, really fun team to watch, especially now that Dylan Brooks is not going to be back. So I think that, I feel bad for Memphis fans. I don't know many, but the ones that I do know are very worried about this for Ja, the person primarily, and then also the player that they'll enjoy watching night in, night out, which sounds like they will not be able to do for a while.
Literally like 2 weeks ago, or not even, he posted those Instagram stories where people thought he was like suicidal, and then he was basically like, no,
I don't
just
like
taking
that
a break. Well, no, it's like, no, I'm just taking a break. And it's like taking a break, yet you probably knew exactly what Adam Silver was cryptically saying. Yeah. So it's like almost
that might
like
have been when he was told about what's coming down hammer
damage control, I think, is what I'll land with safely, because there's nothing else it could have been. And I don't want to end a final show this way, right? Remember, Chipotle lost $60,000 just tonight alone on a 30% shooting night. Let's just remember that. But
Ja's going to lose a lot more than that. Yeah.
That's good. That's a great way to end it. So, live for 32 minutes, but obviously, well past 11 o'clock now Eastern time. Thank goodness this game honestly had like no free throws, because, like you said, Miami had the NBA Finals. Was it finals record or playoff record?
Playoffs.
Wow,
Two
so playoff
free throw
record
attempts.
So that's a reminder to us when Game 2 start, whatever the next 8:30 tip is on whatever the weekend is. I will say, by the way, I'm totally on topic. The finals did a very good job of scheduling. I will granted, I'm saying that because it literally works out great for both of us, and we can do all these shows very perfectly lined up. That doesn't matter necessarily, but all the weekend games are perfectly like they space them out basically. Like very the nights that would people it's like there's no. I don't think there's any like non-early week games. So it's like Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Like it's all these super spaced out, whatever. And then of course when we go game 5, 6, 7, it's every other, right? Because they have to be done by the 18th or whatever the deadline thing is.
Shout out to Scott Foster for helping this line up perfectly.
Shout out to the NBA for putting the schedule out 12 months ago and being like, we're starting on the 1st. And if all these series sweep in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals, you guys are going to sit on your you-know-what for the next week and a half. Yeah, and they were okay with it.
They flipped a coin. Which 3-0 series is going 7?
They were completely okay with it, and I'm not going to lie to you. I think it would have absolutely hysterical to see how Twitter would have reacted when half of the casuals realized that this was planned like forever ago.
Right.
I think it would have been awesome to watch people on May 19th. Like, why are the finals not starting next week?
Suspend Ja Morant now. We need something to talk about.
We got plenty to talk about around here, like you said, with the draft coming up. Got a lot of fun stuff. Like I said, ranking your boy Hunter Tyson. So, plug away. I'm going to throw the banner on the screen and get rid of this one that makes no sense now because the game's over. Shout out to the people that did come out live tonight, whoever's hanging out right now. About to get this thing closed up, and they clicked off as I was about to do a SeatGeek read. But thanks. Subscribe to the 1009 podcast below. Plug away. Thank you for starting off game one with me.
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed it. Long-time listener and many-time caller, but it's the first time live for me, so enjoyed it a lot. I've got a podcast with some college roommates of mine that are still dear friends. The 1009 podcast, where Clemson heavy, football heavy, just covered some Clemson baseball and softball, and then the NCAA baseball tournament bracket. Picked some regional winners. We'll all be down in God's country in Clemson this weekend for the regional, watching some Clemson action live. So look out for some random live content there, self-signal dependent. But yeah, I watch more NBA than my two dear co-hosts combined. So I'm always very appreciative when whoever reaches out with an opportunity to talk ball. And yeah, I would say a C+ game entertainment wise in game one.
That might be nice. I was going to
steal a page from Wob and do some league pass ratings even post game. But we've got guaranteed 3 more, so there's lots of room for improvement as far as game flow and things like that. But yeah, feeling really good about Denver in 5. As much as I would love to see as many games as possible, with this being the last series of the season.
Don't forget, you can get Jamal Murray with plus odds right now to win Finals MVP. You can still get it.
Yeah, it was 9-1 this morning. It's not that anymore.
Throwing that out there again. I haven't touched on gambling much as North Carolina decides to finally pick up their feet after 5 years. Hopefully here. For those that don't know, based in North Carolina, we may have FanDuel accounts, legal FanDuel. Sorry, let me be clear. We may have legal FanDuel accounts here in the next month. So, yeah, we will be talking more about that on or off in air in the next couple of weeks if they do put that through. So, plus odds on Jamal Murray to win Finals MVP. I personally wouldn't do it, but it is out there. So, don't forget SeatGeek. Use code. I love doing this live. Use code 2POINTERS, $20 off your first order. I also don't love doing this at 11:30 at night. If you're going to any, like you said, baseball games, I love that you threw that out there. Baseball games this summer, concerts, sporting events. God forbid if you can afford an NBA Finals ticket. God bless you. $20 off will save you some money for a nosebleed in Miami or in Denver. $20 off first purchase. SeatGeek. Make sure you're not getting ripped off in a good deal. Thanks again, my friend, and we are out of here.